3 of whom left under very bitter circumstances. 2 wrote very negative books about Obama. 1 gave a very negative interview. Chuck Hagel did. And in the case of Leon Panetta, he criticized everything. He criticized Obama's withdrawal from Iraq, said that Obama surrounds himself with a bunch of political guys and takes policy questions and turns them into political questions, that he shouldn't have drawn the red line on Syria and not followed through. They gave our allies and our enemies the impression that we were feckless. He also defended enhanced interrogation techniques, also known as waterboarding, said that it got intel that was usable. Very, very upset with Obama on these major foreign policy decisions, the pullout of Iraq, and said had there been a stay-behind force, ISIS could have been dealt with. Same thing that Ray Odierno said, the former Army general, member, Joint Chiefs of Staff. Is this thing on? And Robert Gates, of course, his first Secretary of Defense, gave an interview when he left to Bob Schieffer of CBS and criticized the Iran deal and said it was based upon a hope that he thought was unrealistic. My goodness, isn't that Obama's singular deal, the Iran deal? Before that, it was the pullout of all the troops because he fulfilled a campaign promise. Panetta advised against it. My point is, did anybody in the mainstream media talk about turmoil in the White House, chaos in the White House? I mean, these are major foreign policy differences. He went through 4 secretaries of defense in 5 years. This thing on? Chaos in the White House? No. Now, on policy, Jeff Sessions and Trump see eye to eye. Trump is upset that Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Trump investigation, and I get that. And then it goes to the assistant AG who promptly appoints a special counsel. Something that did not happen with respect to Chinagate, even though Louis Freeh, the then head of the FBI, said if there's any reason for a special counsel, it is now. Janet Reno refused. Charles Labella headed up a task force set up by the FBI to examine Chinagate. He, too, wrote Janet Reno a memo and said, if there's any reason for a special counsel, it's now. Yet there wasn't one, was there? Nor was there one for Fast and Furious. Nor was there one for the Clinton Foundation pay-to-play. Nor was there one for Hillary's violation of the Espionage Act. I think you get the point. So here is Anthony Scaramucci on the CNN Mario Cuomo show this morning.
Why don't you let me talk for a little bit, and then you can ask me questions. But this is super, super important to the country. Now, whether you agree with the president or you disagree with the president, you have to love the institution of the presidency. You have to love the office, and you have to love our country. And what is going on right now, I've done a major amount of work over the last 5 days. I've interviewed most of the assistants to the president. I've interviewed most of the people in the communications team in the White House. And what the president and I would like to tell everybody, we have a very, very good idea of who the leakers are, who the senior leakers are in the White House. We'll get to that in a second. But what I also want to say is that we are working together, the president and myself and other members of his team in law enforcement, to undercut and undercover or out, if you will, the leakers in the entire country. As the president would say in his own words, the White House leakers are small potatoes. I'll talk to you about a few leaks that happened last night that I find reprehensible, but the White House leaks are small potatoes relative to things that are going on with leaking things about Syria or North Korea or leaking things about Iraq. Those are the types of leaks that are so treasonous that 150 years ago people would have actually been hung for those types of leaks. So the president brought me in. He knows I'm his friend first, Chris. You're from New York. I'm from New York. The president is from New York. We had dinner last night. I sat next to the first lady. I love the president. I've said that. I know the press wants to ridicule me for saying it 6 times from the podium. But we started out as friends. I am not a politician. I'm an American businessman and entrepreneur that have built 2 businesses, and I try to play it straight with people. The president is trying to play it straight with people, which is why he has 140 or 125 social media followers, because they want to hear it straight from the president.
And they give me 125, 140 million.
And I said to the president this morning, I can't afford to be a sycophant to you, sir. I have to talk to you straight as a friend so I can help you with this problem. And so what I want to say to you is I understand the law. I know that there was a public disclosure mechanism in my financial forms. What I'm upset about is the process and the junk pool, the dirty pool, Chris, in terms of the way this stuff is being done. And the leaking won't stop. I can't have a couple of friends up from Fox and Friends and Sean Hannity, who's one of my closest friends, to dinner with the president and his first lady without it being leaked in 7 minutes. It's absolutely, completely, and totally reprehensible. And as you know from the Italian expression, the fish stinks from the head down. But I can tell you two fish that don't stink, okay? And that's me and the president.
The Godfather is a fictional account of the activities of a small group of ruthless criminals. It would be erroneous and unfair to suggest that they are representative of any particular ethnic group. This motion picture classic is graphic in depicting the destructive effects of crime and violence, although it has been edited for television. Parental discretion is advised.
Now, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is IT guy. I was just at Dulles Airport. They bust him at Dulles. And apparently, he's got something that Debbie Wasserman Schultz wants back. How do I know that? Because in the middle of May, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was grilling the Capitol Hill police chief about what happens should a member lose a computer. Didn't talk about her, but I think it's fair to infer from her concern that maybe Debbie Wasserman Schultz no longer has something this IT guy has, and whatever that something is might very well be damaging. Here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the middle of May talking to the head of the Capitol Hill Police. Listen to this.
If the member loses the equipment, says they lose the equipment, and it is found by the Capitol Police, it is supposed to be returned.
If ownership has been established,
Right.
it'll be returned. If it's subject to an ongoing investigation or additional things
Okay.
that need to be turned
But
over.
not an ongoing investigation related to the member. If the equipment belongs to the member, it has been lost, they say it's been lost, and it's been identified as that member's, and the Capitol Police is supposed to return it. Correct?
Well, it's not I can't give a yes or no answer on that because I know
It's a
more
simple yes or no
parameters.
answer.
Well,
If you lose, if a member loses equipment,
Yes, ma'am.
and it is found by the Capitol Police or your staff, and it is identified as that member's equipment, and the member is not associated with any case, and that is their equipment, it is supposed to be returned, yes or no?
depends on the circumstances. And if the circumstances are...
I don't understand how that's possible. Members' equipment is members' equipment. Under my understanding, the Capitol Police is not able to confiscate members' equipment when the member is not under investigation. It is their equipment, and it's supposed to be returned.
Well, I think there's extenuating circumstances in this case, and I think that, working through my counsel and, the necessary personnel, if that in fact is the case, and with the permission of, through the investigation, then we'll return the equipment. But until that's accomplished, I can't return the equipment.
I think you're violating the rules when you conduct your business that way.
Wow. We come back. An Indiana police officer has been shot and killed responding to a crash. More on this in a minute. I'm Larry Elder.
America, we have a country to save. And now, here's Larry Elder.
Barry, love your show. We're listening to you in Tampa Bay. And basically, Democrats have zero class. None. They insult the hardworking poll workers and voters, and they expect us to believe their BS story is really beyond lunacy. I'll never, ever vote Democrat or listen to the media again. Liars. Pure and simple.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. An Indiana police officer has been shot and killed. He was responding to a crash this morning, 7:45 p.m. I'm assuming this is Eastern Time. Lieutenant Aaron Allen, 6-year veteran of the department, Southport Department in Indiana, He had nearly 20 years of law enforcement experience. Allen was responding to a crash where someone was trapped today, when he was shot. The sergeant of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department says that the person who fired at Allen was shot by another officer responding to the scene, and the suspected shooter and a second person were in custody with non-life-threatening injuries. Southport is an enclave within the city limits of Indianapolis, and apparently the 30 officers that form the Southport Police Department are all unpaid volunteers. Southport is a city in southern Marion County with a population of about 1,700 people. So I'm sure this is extremely, extremely rare. Anyway, a moment of silence for this officer who was responding to a crash and was shot and killed. Just died from injuries sustained this morning. Moment of silence for Lieutenant Aaron Allen. Now, on the brighter side of things, I read this morning that, you remember Officers Liu and Ramos, who were literally executed in New York, NYPD officers? They were posthumously promoted to detective. The widow has just now had a child, and when her husband was shot, she apparently asked to preserve his sperm, and they were able to do that. And through in vitro fertilization, she now has a child. And she says, I can hardly wait to tell my child how brave the father was. Jim Jordan, Ohio, is calling for special counsel in the case of Hillary Clinton. And again, this is why Donald Trump is so upset. Jeff Sessions recuses himself. The next in line then appoints special counsel. These guys have open-ended inquiry. And again, what's the underlying crime? Still have no idea. And where was the special counsel during Chinagate? When the head of the FBI wrote a 22-page memo to Janet Reno and said, if there's any basis for a special counsel, it's now. A guy named Charles Labella headed up a task force investigating the same thing. And he wrote a memo, I think it had over 20 pages as well, to Janet Reno. Please appoint a special counsel. She didn't do it. Fast and Furious, you have the AG Eric Holder, the first, to my knowledge, and only AG ever to be held in criminal contempt of court. Criminal contempt of Congress for not turning over documents relating to Fast and Furious. Was there a special counsel? Special counsel, anybody? Didn't think so. What about Hillary and the Espionage Act? James Comey does this presentation outlining all the elements of the crime that she had, in his view, committed, and then at the last minute, but she had no intent, so therefore I'm not going to recommend any kind of criminal prosecution. First of all, intent is not required. Secondly, it's not his job to have that kind of press conference to make that kind of decision. But was there a special counsel? I see. And regarding Hillary and the pay-to-play Clinton Foundation and all the money that the Clinton Foundation gets from these countries that do business for the State Department, was there a special counsel for that? This is why Jim Jordan is not happy.
The Judiciary Committee is in search for answers as to how Comey handled the Clinton email investigation. And that's not all they want. A bit earlier, I talked with a committee member, Jim Jordan, and he was pretty fired up about this. Watch. Seems to me you're painting a pretty broad brush. Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Hillary Clinton email. What do you want?
Well, we want the facts. The American people want the facts. And we want to know why in the world would the Attorney General of the United States, Bill, tell the FBI director of the United States, go tell the American people something that's not true. Remember, she said, go call it a matter, not an investigation. As I said in committee yesterday, last time I checked, he wasn't director of the Federal Bureau of Matters. He's the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And so when you have the Justice Department intentionally, willfully misleading the American people, that warrants examination. That's why we're calling for a special counsel.
Okay, that's a big deal now. Let me get to that in a moment. Is this any part of a reaction with the president's been talking about? You know, he tweets about matters like these.
Well, no, this is about getting the truth. This is about what the constituents in the 4th District of Ohio are talking to me about. This is about just looking at the rule of law and equal treatment under the law. How in the world does someone like Secretary Clinton get away with something that no other person in the country get away with, right?
You tell me. By the way, Bob France had Jim Jordan on the show yesterday. Colin Kaepernick. People forget about this part. In addition to saying he wasn't going to kneel for the national anthem, he also said if Hillary or anybody else, she would be in jail.
There's not two standards. There's one standard. It's called equal treatment under the law. At least that's the way it's supposed to be. But what we found last year during the middle of this election is you had the subject of the investigation's husband meet with the Attorney General 3 days before the subject of the investigation is scheduled to be interviewed by the FBI. When does that ever happen anywhere else? So this is, all these facts, we need to examine them all and find out, was there any collusion maybe between James Comey and Robert Mueller when he leaked a government memo through a friend to the New York Times, as he said, to create momentum for a special counsel? All those questions need to be answered.
Yeah,
a special counsel is the right way to do it.
It's almost August. Why now?
Well, because James Comey just testified a few weeks back saying these things happen. He just told us that, you know what? The Attorney General of the United States told me to go out and say something to the American public that was not accurate. We think we need to get to the bottom of all that information.
Got it. Your colleague, Steve Cohen, a Democrat from Tennessee, he talked about it's about Comey, it's not about Hillary Clinton. And apparently he had words yesterday, if you heard them or not, I don't know. He said justice has left the room. We pretty much know where he stands.
Justice has left the room. And I even talk about Lois Lerner taking the fifth, shafting all these people that wanted tax exemption who were conservative. Pattern of abuse like I've never seen of the IRS. And you remember one of the articles of impeachment for Richard Nixon was the use of the IRS as a weapon against his enemies. Where was the special counsel? Is this thing on? I don't think this thing is on, Mr. McConnell. Maybe we need to get a tech in here to get this thing on, because it's not on. We come back. Donald Trump reversed Obama's policy allowing transgender to serve in the military. 888-971-SAG, 888-971-7243. I am the Great Eldersky. Do not leave town.
All across America, The Larry Elder Show. America, we have a country to save. And now, here's Larry Elder.
Hey, Larry, it's Mike from Sun City here. Looks like we're going to have to wait for 2018, get rid of the Republicans that are turning their back on the American people, get more Republicans in that will work for the Trump's agenda and work for the American people. It's a crying shame, but it looks like that's what's going to happen. Talk to you later, man.
888-971-SAG. Now, you heard it this week, the live Made in America broadcast from Salem Radio Network. Now relive it with an amazing podcast, 15 hours of live broadcast from the White House lawn. Get it now for just $7.95 each by going to my website, LarryElder.com.
Now we go live to the White House, where the president is ready to speak.
Before I begin, I want to talk about some of the many things that we've recently accomplished. Stock market at an all-time high, which means we put trillions of dollars in the pockets of middle and working class Americans who own stock in their pension plans and mutual funds. Anyone like that? Polls show business confidence is way up, especially small business, as we continue to shake off the economic doldrums of the last 8 years that gave us a weak 2% recovery. That's pretty good. Anyone? With executive orders, we're rolling back job-killing regulations and got out of the Paris Accords that would place us at an economic disadvantage against our competitors. And that's great. Right? Does anyone like that? Another one of our accomplishments, the House passed an Obamacare repeal and replace bill, and the Senate is now taking it up. How do you like that? Pretty good. We added a constitutionalist, Neil Gorsuch, to the Supreme Court, with just changing how we speak about illegal aliens, that they will not be welcome here. Illegal border crossings at the southern border are down over 70%. You like that? Our adversaries, whether North Korea, Iran, Syria, or Russia, are on notice. No more leading from behind. America is back. And with that, I'll take some questions. Yes, sir.
Mr. Trump, thank you for taking my question, sir. You didn't mention Russia, and I'm wondering why not.
Yes, I did when I talked about our adversaries.
You said nothing about the Russian collusion investigation.
You said I said nothing about Russia, when in fact I did. Who are you with?
CNN?
Thought so. Fake news. Next question.
Yes, sir. You were once spotted in a Manhattan hotel lobby drinking a White Russian. Your comment, sir?
Anybody who knows me knows that I don't drink. And
My bad, sir. It was a Black Russian.
as I was about to say, anybody who knows me knows I don't drink. Yes, ma'am.
Following up on MSNBC's Black Russian question, you say you've never drunk a Black Russian. But, quite frankly, sir, the relevant question is whether or not you've ever dated a Black Russian.
And who are you with?
New York Times.
Thought so. Sounds about right. I'm not going to dignify that question with a response, except to say that the New York Times, bad, biased, fake news, totally fake. Now this gentleman over here, the blonde with the ponytail, nose ring, and the Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Who are you with?
Washington Post. Following up on the New York Times Russian collusion question, which was a follow-up on the MSNBC question, which followed up on the CNN question. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, sir. Are you saying you would never, under any circumstances, date a Black Russian, no matter the size of her...
Okay, next question. Who's got a question?
Have you never played Russian roulette?
Mr. President, have you ever seen Monster on the Hudson? Have you ever played with Russian dolls?
Who did you root for when you watched Dr. Strangelove?
Rasputin, Mr. President, good guy. Okay.
Was Chernobyl
Tough day at the office. Okay, we have a couple poll questions for you. We asked you, was it good for the Fed to establish Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, or should retirement, health care, and addressing poverty have been left up to the states? 21% of you said, good idea for the Fed to have done this. 79% of you said it should have been left to the states. Second question. Is media more hostile toward President Trump than toward any president in your lifetime? 93% of you said yes. 7% said no. Here's a new question. Should President Trump fire AG Jeff Sessions? Real simple. Should President Trump fire AG Jeff Sessions? Go to your app store, download the Zip app.
Free from the App Store.
And to answer, use my code SAGE, S-A-G-E, to answer the question. Should President Trump fire AG Jeff Sessions? We're going to be talking about Donald Trump reversing Obama's policy to allow transgender to serve in the military, and what happens if Obama fires Jeff Sessions. All that's coming up.
You're listening to The Larry Elder Show. Call the Larry Elder Show now at 888-971-SAGE. That's 888-971-7243. Eldorado's Let Larry Know What's on Your Mind.
Just wanted to know why the Senate and the Congress can't have the same medical care as we are going to have. If it's good enough for us, it's good enough for them. Maybe if they had to do that, they'd vote on a plan right away. Thank you. My name is Judy.
Thank you. 888-971-SAG. A number of people are calling about the press conference we just now played. Look, CRN sends us stuff. We just play it. We're trying to verify the validity of that press conference. It's possible it might be fake news. Unclear. Now, 35 years after President Reagan crushed the Air Traffic Controllers Union for calling an illegal strike, big labor and big airlines have their eyes on recapturing the air traffic control system. Their unwitting allies are Republicans on Capitol Hill who want to spin off air traffic control to a federally funded, independent nonprofit corporation, a process that they call privatization. Now, I'm in favor of privatization, but I want true privatization, not only of air traffic control, but also of airports. But the plan here is privatization in name only. Big airlines and unions stand to gain $20 billion in giveaways. Their plan hands over decisions about infrastructure, funding, taxes, fees, and consumer complaints to a board dominated by the commercial airlines. Big unions stand to gain too, and they are lobbying for this plan. All of this is bad news for consumers. The new plan will raise ticket prices, make travel less safe. Supporters of the plan say this will help reduce flight times and delays, but that simply is not true. The Department of Transportation data show that our air traffic control system is not the primary cause of airline flight delays, and airline scheduling practices are. And this proposal just gives more power to the big airlines. Help stop this so-called privatization in name-only plan. Go to aviationacrossamerica.org to learn